see how it goes. Now, I want to talk just briefly also about school board. Now, Poway Unified has 5 trustees or school board members, and 3 of those races are up for election. Now, full disclosure, I ran in 2014 and I lost by slightly more than 1%. It was very close. But some of the candidates that I ran with or ran against in 2014 have been on the school board multiple terms. And one of them is Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe. And she is running for re-election in Trustee Area B, which is in Rancho Penasquitos. And remember how when they carved up the districts, they did the district work in Poway Unified. At one time, they had 4 council members or trustees that lived in Penasquitos. And they had a little zone of a 1-mile radius circle. And 4 of the 5 elected trustees lived in that 1-mile circle out of a school district that was 10 miles by 10 miles, 100 square miles. It was ridiculous how they gerrymandered the district. So as a result, you got a lot of Penasquitos folks that are involved that are on the school board. So one of them is Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe. She's a former president of the school board, because they have kind of a rotation with that, and it's an unofficial rotation, but she has been probably president more disproportionately than a regular rotation would be. So she is very well known, very well organized. Her family, especially her mother, was a longtime teacher, and she's essentially dedicated her life to this, to being a school board member and raising her children there. And Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe has huge support amongst the educational establishment. But there's a lot of people that don't like her, and just like really any politician, that's true, right? Where some will like them and some won't. But in her race, there is only, where is it? Excuse me, she's in area D. Pardon me, area D. I said B earlier. She's in area D. She has one person running against her, and her name is Janet Bremseth. Janet Bremseth, a community volunteer. And I don't know who Janet Bremseth is. I'd like to learn and find out more about her. But I know that she's obviously not elected. She is a challenger. I don't know what her background is, what her credentials are, but she's going to have a difficult time winning that race because Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe is so well entrenched, so well established, has won already twice in a row, going for her 3rd election. There's only one challenger. That's going to be as they say, a tough out to defeat Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe. So that race, I don't know, might be interesting, but on paper, it doesn't look so interesting. Now, there's a couple of other races that are worthy of looking at. In area C, which I think this is an interesting one because this is TJ Zane's district. TJ Zane ran against me in 2014. He was successful. He's not running for re-election, which is very surprising. TJ Zane, the former executive chairman of the Republican Party of San Diego, who, by the way, has the full support of the teachers union, which is an interesting, juxtaposition. TJ Zane is a political animal and knows the power structures knows what buttons to push, knows where to get support and endorsements. He's a very intelligent, calculating political candidate, politician, but he's not running for re-election. When I discovered this, I was shocked. I don't know what would cause him to do that, and he's not running for another office. There was a time that he was suspected he was going to run for city council for the spot that's currently occupied by Chris Cate for the San Diego City Council, and he formally declined that, I think 2 years ago. So I don't know what he's doing. I know he's from the East Coast. I think his family's from Connecticut. He went to college in Pennsylvania. So is the family moving? I don't know. Just speculating. But it was very surprising to see that he's not running. But that creates opportunity for other people. And so there are 3 people that are running for school board in trustee area C. And one of them is a gentleman named Patrick Batten, a businessman and U.S. Marine. Another gentleman, Jason Bennett, a restaurateur, a Marine, and a father. And then finally, Heather Plotzke, an education advocate and bookkeeper. Now, I don't know any of these candidates. For some reason, Heather Plotzke's name sounds familiar, but I don't really know any of these candidates. I really couldn't offer any judgment, any preview. But given that there's no incumbent in that district, and again, by the way, this is all mostly Rancho Penasquitos and I think some 4S Ranch that's in this district. So this will be a kind of a free-for-all. We'll see who gets traction. Now, of these candidates, one of them is going to be aligned with the teachers union, because the teachers union will always endorse one candidate. Then there's the Poway, what was it? Why can I not? A PSEA, Poway School Employees Association, is the union for all of the non-teachers. They call them the classified staff. The teachers are certified, because they have the certification for their teaching credential. The classified are all the non-teachers, the administrators, the counselors, the groundskeepers, the management staff, the people in food services, the bus drivers, they're all in PSEA. And that's another union, which often has competing interests with the teachers union. And so I'd imagine one of these candidates is probably going to get the endorsement of PSEA, and one will get the endorsement of the teacher. And then the other one won't have either endorsement, which they may wear as a badge of honor. So we'll see. So curious to see how that one plays out. And then finally, in Poway Unified Trustee Area B, which is where I live, there are 3 candidates. And just reading off this list in the order that they're presented, one of them is a lady named Freda Brunsell. And Frida is a education advocate and an engineer. I have been seeing her activity on social media. She has been extremely active. She has support, I think, from, I'm going to make an assumption here, from the Democratic Party or people that are on that side of the fence. And we're going to learn more about her. But generally speaking, I'm noticing that there are fundraisers that occur where Frida is appearing, and so is Hiram Soto. So I would assume that their political interests are aligned. So she's running, but she is an extraordinarily credible candidate. She has been very active in education. She's got a whole bunch of ideas, and she's going to be a very interesting challenger. Now, there is an incumbent, and the incumbent is Ginger Couvrette. Now, Ginger is an extraordinarily well-known person in the city of Poway. Was the previous, what was she? She was the president of the Poway Sports Council, which is the organization that works with the city to allocate fields for all the youth sports leagues. She might have even been president, I think, of the Poway soccer, if I recall. And she ran a lot of, what was it? What would they call it? The pumpkin. What was the name of that? It was a Halloween a Halloween event 5K fundraiser. She was the chair of that. Why am I blanking on the name of it? She's extremely well known in the city. She's done a lot of work and knows a lot of people and is very well aligned with a lot of the power-based political structure in the city of Poway and on the school board. And her husband, by the way, is, if I recall, is the president of the local Kiwanis chapter and is the current or former president or chairman of the Poway Chamber of Commerce. So definitely a power couple, certainly. But she's, like I said, Michelle O'Connor Ratcliffe will be a tough out. I think Ginger Couvrette is going to be a tough out because she's an incumbent. She has lots of name recognition, and incumbents always have an advantage. So is Frida going to be able to be a formidable challenger? Now, if you look at on paper, Frida has a lot going for her, so she could be a very viable challenger, but we'll see how it shakes out, right? And then there's a third candidate running, and his name is Dave Nelson, and he is a small business owner. And honestly, I don't know who Dave Nelson is. I'm sure he's a quality gentleman and probably a very good candidate. We're going to learn more about him. Now, when you have a three-way race, interesting things can happen. You might have two candidates that are neck and neck, and you get a third one in there. It can kind of swing the race either way. People like to look back at the 1992 presidential election when Ross Perot was involved. Now, some people mistakenly think that Ross Perot swung the 92 election for Clinton and took the election out of George H.W. Bush's hands. Now, this is a tangent, but that election, if you go back and look at the history books, and people have analyzed it to death, Ross Perot really didn't affect the outcome. His support sort of kind of was 50-50 from Bush and Clinton. So he didn't really have that effect, even though a lot of people think he did. But in these elections, when there's three people running, you could have two strong candidates and maybe one less than strong candidate that could be a curveball that could throw the election either way. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. Now, again, every one of these candidates are welcome to join me here in the podcast, and we'll talk about their issues. We'll go through their platform. We'll learn about their background. We'll ask them questions about their family, their history, why they are interested in the job that they're pursuing. We'll learn more about their careers. And over the course of these interviews, the beautiful thing is that you learn more about what makes that candidate tick. You learn more about their character, what their values are. You get an understanding of what things happen in their life that sort of shape their worldview. It's hard to get that from looking at a campaign flyer or door hanger. It's hard to get that from a 2-sentence blurb in the local newspaper. It's even hard to get that at a candidate forum or candidate debate when they have 60 seconds or 30 seconds to respond to a question. Now, granted, in a candidate debate, you can learn a lot through body language and a lot of other things. But here in the podcast, I just like to have the sit down and we just talk. And if you are a longtime listener, longtime viewer of my podcast, I have opinions. I've, in some cases, very strong opinions on issues. And I like to share those in these solo podcasts. But when I do an interview, my approach is different because I'm not their challenger. I'm not their opponent. So my style in those interviews is going to be more inquisitive, to learn more, to ask questions, to uncover things, to have them explain things. And then in many ways to reflect a lot of the vocal opinions I hear from people in my neighborhoods, because I've lived in Poway since 1996. And I can share a lot of those common objections, those common questions that a lot of people have, and present those to the candidates, and let's see how they respond. And so, so those are all open. And there's